Greetings, This Old Sword followers on YouTube. This Old Sword here with a follow-up on a previous video, and I'm calling this one revisiting the point down edge in dynamics of knife design and use. In the center you see two dedicated point down edge in blades. On the left we have the Kaiser Inversion by Dirk Pinkerton. On the right we have the Spyderco Pikal, and I'm not sure I know who the designer is. I believe you can look that up. You can see that gentleman showing some techniques in some older YouTube videos. Nonetheless, it's surrounded by some knives that can be adapted for use by edge in, point down. So let's take a look at the Inversion and the Pikal. So in Filipino martial arts, I learned the pronunciation as Pakal, P-A-K-A-L. And in other styles it is Pikal, and the romanization might be P'-K-A-L, it might be P-A-K-A-L, it might be P-I-K-A-L. It doesn't really matter. It's a Filipino dialect, Tagalog, I believe. My study was in the Pikiti Tercia style under Leo Gahe and also Bill McGrath. So both of those gentlemen have many years of experience with the blade, stick, and empty hand. In the Philippine Islands, you have centuries of use by many of the tribes, including the Moros and others, using the knife as either complement to empty hand or complement to a stick or complement to a sword, or all by itself. So these are dedicated use point down edge in blades. They're meant to be held this way, and they're meant to be used where the point is delivered this way and pulled in. So the hand moves. See if I can back out a little more. The hand moves in an arc with these implements. Okay. Karambit, as a contrast, here's a Carahawk by Spyderco. Karambit is designed to move outward, cross, up, down, or any variant angle in a backhanded cutting motion, generally speaking. Different Karambit designs, you have different specialty features, you can trap with them, so on and so forth. The Karambit's been criticized a bit of late because of the fact that the ring more or less dedicates it to one hand and that you can't change hands. Those that are proficient with a Karambit can change hands easily and can place it in a point forward position as well. I only have the Karambit out on the table to demonstrate one point a little bit later. But notice the design of the dedicated point down edge in knives. The pinky on the Inversion has a indent right here to act as a guard against slippage because on the downward thrust. Okay? These, by the way, can also be used on an outward jab, that way. So this way or that way, and many other ways. But notice the design is a lot like a Wharncliffe on this particular one. let's take a look at the Spyderco Pikal. You also have a notch for the pinky to prevent the hand from sliding down onto the blade. And the cutout here is for the spidey hole in this one when it's closed. But you have a similar configuration, except on this Pical knife, notice that the middle of the side of the hand is in line with the blade. You have a lot more leverage here. And with a shorter blade, you don't want too long a blade on a Pikal technique, Pikal knife, because you don't have the same power, you don't have the same leverage on the thrust or on the jab. Notice that the inversion, Dirk Pinkerton did something just a little bit different in that the blade is more offset to a back position. You have that to a degree here on the Pikal, but you have it even more on the inversion. And again, the purpose there is for power and control. This edge rides just a little bit higher in the hand towards the fingers. Still very useful. But you notice that, you're going to grip a knife across the palm in a hammer grip, ice pick grip, excuse me. It'd be hammer grip this way, ice pick grip this way. And the delivery again is forward and down, the arcing motion. So that point's going to lead, and the tendency is for the circle to close inward. So really the delivery is there on that point on the arc, see? Same thing here, right? Now certain knives, and I'm not really criticizing them, but just contrasting them because the fruit knife is getting a lot of exposure these days. You have on that more or less a hook. And you have a straight handle. I'm just using this as an example because it's the only knife I have with a curve to it. But let me hold it this way just to demonstrate, as I did in my last video. On the arc, the point is leading, right? On the arc, the point is leading. And you get pretty much all point, and then you get the rest of the blade contacting and ripping like a claw. So that's designed like an animal's claw. This Pikal knife by Spyderco also resembles a claw, but there's very little curve on that inner edge. Yet it's designed so the point also on the arc makes contact first. You can replicate this. What a lot of people don't realize is you don't need a specialized knife. They're nice to have. You can have something like the Yojimbo. Very familiar knife to most of you. Spyderco Yojimbo. It has more or less a straight handle. It's got finger grooves down here. But because it's got a straight handle, it can be used in the point down, edge in grip very easily. Not going to feel really comfortable, but again, you can deliver that point first. And I believe Michael Janich also uses this knife in this position as well as this position, as well as the hammer grip and so forth, because you've got the detail there in the back of the blade. Thumb ramp gives you a lot of comfort in that position. But you can use it this way. And notice, just like with the dedicated knives, point leads on that arc. And this will rip and tear just like the one that's designed to look like an animal's claw. This can even be adapted in particular to Wharncliffe style blades. Here's the CJRB Palla. which I also reviewed. Again, a straightish handle. A little too much curve in this one for it to be 100% comfortable, but it still lines up in a squared off position. Again, that on that arc, that point is leading and tearing. You actually have more contact with an edge here than you do on the hook, because you're getting all point, and one would argue that all point is driving in, and then you're getting the contact. So different philosophies, different usages. Doesn't make one good and one bad, but again, what I'm trying to demonstrate here is you've got dedicated knives for point down, edge in, but you can take something like the Kendo by Bestech. Little different here in that on the arc, really what's going to make contact first is right about here. Maybe here, maybe that secondary point on the Tonto. But on that arc, you see how the tip that's up, and if you have a knife where the tip is offset up and the hand is more or less down here and the point is up, you get a little bit of a delay on that point hitting. Of course, at full speed, you're not going to see that delay, but leverage-wise, the closer the point is to the 90 degree of the hand across the palm, the more power you're going to have. And a 3-inch blade is about ideal. This would work too for a dagger style 3-inch, 3.5-inch fixed blade knife. Now here we have the Nock Knives DTO3. Looks like a chef's knife and like a kitchen knife. Again, we got a nice straightish handle, and this can be adapted very well, thumb over the pommel, for the edge in, point down delivery. See? Here's a block of my handy dandy test foam. And if I can get distanced enough so you can see what I mean. So here it is as a target. And we have this blade hitting and cutting. Hitting on the arc and cutting. If I switch to the Yojimbo, a Warncliffe style blade, you have the arc, point hitting first and cutting through. One advantage you might find with the hooked blade is that on that arc hitting here, it tends to go a little bit deeper because that point is going in. So these are really just relative comparisons showing you that if you happen to do martial blade work or something like that, and you are looking for a knife that's dedicated to it, and you may not, or you may or may not be able to use for EDC, everyday carry and chores and so forth, you might want to carry something like a Warncliffe, which has a good utility and can function in the edge in, point down capacity as well. Hope that may have added a little to your knowledge. Somewhat limited what I can do in the tabletop here, but maybe one day we'll do a one-on-one type video for you with once we can get out of hibernation here in the COVID times, and show you in a studio what some of these techniques might look like. In the meantime, very good source would be somebody like Tuhan Bill McGrath. He has videos out on YouTube, and certainly people like Doug Marcaida, Bastian Cove of Bastinelli Knives, so on and so forth. They do a lot with dedicated purpose blades. So may run a bit long on this video. Maybe I'll pare it down. Maybe I'll just let it go as is. But hopefully that is of interest to you. And I'm not advocating the use of knives for any particular purpose. We all know that knives can be used for defense. They can be used for tactical purposes by law enforcement, military, special units, special forces, etc. But this is bringing you just maybe a little bit further into blade dynamics, blade ergonomics, and some of that stuff. So this is This Old Sword signing out. You have yourself a great day and evening, and we'll be back with you soon.